We're about to get into first press in a second. Just checking.
Okay, you
Oh, I'm speaking to our YouTube
got
viewers
it, got it, got
who
it.
may or may not have joined us already, but still. Okay, so it's like we no longer, this thing no longer comes up.
What's that? This is it. See?
Oh, God, where did you put that? What is that picture?
It's
Is that
analysts.
the picture of our
Both of them.
analysts?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
They were chilled out.
Sorry, guys.
Well, it's not a good picture.
No, your faces were covered. That's why.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
It
Yes.
just looked interesting.
Oh my.
So, I actually want to put up posts of you guys on the website, on our website, as our analysts. Yeah, is that okay?
Which
if
picture?
you send us
Your
the
best
picture you
ones.
want.
He says which
No,
picture?
an actual picture that
You
you
can take a studio
vetted.
shot.
Yeah.
A studio shot?
Yes, if you'd like that.
No, one in the studio or
Or
no,
if
I
you
meant like
already, if you have a professional shot already,
you know
that
you
you
know
use
I
for.
do.
I know you do. So what's up?
This one.
Okay, look
Uh,
at that. See?
Jesus, what is this?
Hey, what the rest of us feel bad.
They will not be there looking like your poor church cousins. But that's a great picture though. So if you can do like send it and do a write up as well. I know you have a write up, right? Send, what's it?
So wait, we're gonna get
Have
to
mercy.
Chopper. You do the seventh story, the suit story for
Mhm.
Justin.
5 and 7 is what he wants. 157.
157. Okay, let's do it.
Studio.
Bum, bum,
Can't hear any.
bum.
Studio. And Lagos, Nigeria world, welcome to Freshly Pressed on Smooth Breakfast for a Feel Good Friday. Joining Kaide and myself, Shopper Martins, in the studio, we have got Justin and we have got Waji. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, good morning, world.
Oh, Justin's in fine form.
All right. Good morning, Shock Bear. Good morning, Carade, and good morning, Lagos.
Ooh, love it. Waji, also great. All right, so Lagos, we've got you be the third analyst by sending your messages in up on WhatsApp. The number to send them into is 0809 440 981. You can also go up on youtube.com/smooth981fm and watch the live stream. And of course, leave your comments, and we will be reading those out as well. We've got quite a number of stories to bring to you today. The first being from the Guardian newspaper, Nigeria to have direct channel to manage prohibited content on Twitter. So now the government has come out, everybody, Twitter NG was renewed.
Hashtag keep it
It
on.
came back to life yesterday as the government came out at midnight and said yes, everything, or rather the government came out the day before and said that from midnight Twitter would be restored, and so everybody went back to the Twitter streets. Of course, the reason they said it would be restored was because Twitter had come and they had spoken with their partnership team, and some concessions had been made. Now, Justin, what do you have to say about this direct channel that is going to be managing prohibited content? And I put it in quotation marks.
Let me start from what's that word we use when something is not, we're not sure something is true and we have to protect ourselves from? Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Now.
Allegedly,
This is
Twitter
not-
had a negotiation.
No. This is not the. It's not. What's the word I'm looking for? It's not particular to Nigeria. They've already had this in place with other countries such as India.
It doesn't exactly require a face-to-face negotiation. They have the portal, they have the T's and C's, and you go sign up. So Twitter has not officially confirmed that they indeed did have negotiations. But the good thing is, those people who were using VPNs can save their money, save their batteries. Twitter is back on through all legal channels. And so what we need to get clear here is no special concessions as far as I've seen were given to Nigeria. Like you said, Chopper, those partnership portals exist. It's like a support portal, right? Of course, there needs to be some way for entities like sovereigns to engage with the
In fact,
platform.
the fact that it already has a portal, they said that it's agreed to enroll Nigeria in its partner support and law enforcement portals.
There was no. I mean, it's open to entities that want to
If it's
partner.
open, it's an agreement now. Why you? Why?
I said face-to-face
Why do you think that
negotiation.
they just didn't have a face-to-face negotiation with them?
I don't think
Because
that
they didn't.
I just said nothing in the
your
public domain has
opinions.
been confirmed.
No.
Twitter has not put out a statement saying that they did.
But for the federal government
as
to
far
come
as-
out to say that they're going to pay taxes, they're going to have someone to interface with them if some content's
Yeah, they never
available, then
lied,
there
do
might
they?
be some truth to that.
yeah, my,
And then again, you know,
Yeah, but those conversations could have taken place on the portal. That's not it's not a far fetched thing. But I can almost guarantee you that if a face to face meeting was had, we would have seen the pictures. So
we love.
Well, you know we
pictures.
do love pictures.
Yes, we
so
do, yeah.
that is true. Okay, you tell us what you think up on 0809 4440981.
all right, let's move on to our next story. This one comes to you, Waji, and it's from the Punch newspaper. It talks about immunization. So Nigeria blames immunization suspension as 395 polio cases resurface. So to put a background to this, the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency on Thursday announced that Nigeria had officially reported 395 cases of circulating mutant polio virus type 2 across 27 states and the Federal Capital Territory. What do you make of this?
to quote the Honorable Malcolm X, this is a wonderful case of chickens coming home to roost. We were warned against this when we kicked off all the reactions around how best to address COVID, everything from the lockdown and when the vaccines came, and then how best we decided to focus specifically on just COVID vaccines alone and not paying attention to the fact that we still have other viruses that we need to address. And all the healthcare professionals, I think to some extent, even this National Primary Healthcare Organization had indicated that if we only focus on COVID vaccines and we now exhaust all our resources towards that, these are going to be the consequences. The consequences being is that we're going to see a resurfacing and a re-emergence of certain viruses back into the system because the issues around why those viruses exist to begin with have not been addressed. This has to do with infrastructure challenges. This has to do with open sewages, open defecation, and things that have not been tackled from a behavior point of view. So the vaccines were more or less countering those particular issues to make sure we didn't see rapid spread. So when COVID now came in, and that's the hot sticking in town, and everybody wanted to focus on that and started ignoring these other primary healthcare aspects of vaccines, it's not a surprise that these vaccines have come back to play. So now that we know the situation, we need to now begin to refocus our energies and our attitudes towards ensuring that in addition to the rollout of the vaccine, we still cannot ignore the other viruses that are still prevalent if we do not address them. For vaccines, which we do have, it's not as if those vaccines we have to import or anything else. These things are in abundance because they've existed for years. It's just a function of the protocol and the logistics around rolling out those vaccines, which we just happen to ignore because we now directed those energies towards COVID. So I think it needs to be a collaborative understanding from the Institute of Human Virology to make sure that we are tackling all the vaccine issues at the same time and not just focusing on COVID.
But in a space where people are still trying to maintain social distance, people are still trying to come out because of all that's happening with COVID. How then do you recommend? Because a lot of people don't just want to appear to people now. They're saying, hey, you know what, COVID is out there. You can easily catch the spread and all of that. So how do you recommend that the government should make people aware that they still need to take these other vaccines?
Well, I don't see how
Because now there's even a general fear of vaccines.
Well, that's part of the problem, and it's a multi-layered issue that you're referring to, Kaidi, and it's a fantastic point. The first being is that the federal government cannot now say or justify that because of social distancing measures, we should not roll out a vaccine campaign. After all, in the height of the pandemic, you were mandating people to go get the NIN. There was no social distancing there. So it's very rich to have for that statement to be made. That's one. But two, to your latter point, which is actually very critical, is this. The fact that a lot of apathy has been created around the COVID vaccine is going to have a knock-on effect on other vaccines, because you now have people who I happen to just deem as individuals with no medical experience coming out to speak on professional medical matters.
Yes.
And that's contributing to the problem that we have now. I keep going back to certain individuals of influence giving opinions on vaccines, which for me is a very, very big problem, because what is now happening is that opinions is now affecting newborn babies getting vaccines, which is just absolutely insane. And that's why you're now beginning to have a knock-on effect. So we need to kind of recalibrate, rethink, and just re-strategize our approach. Make sure that these things are available. Continue to enhance the campaigns that have existed for decades, letting people know the importance of vaccines. And everyday Nigerians, please go and get all your immunizations. They have been around for close to 100 years. Nothing will happen to you.
That just might be the problem, actually. People might not know the difference, but it's okay. If you're out there,
Well, you know that Nigeria was a lost polio endemic country, and
yes,
when we were finally certified polio free, there was jubilation across the continent.
And now we're
and then a
back.
pandemic
Now we're
happens
back.
and we're back again. Okay, but don't forget, we're taking messages up on our YouTube platform as well. It's youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos.
And Joy, we see your message. We hope that's been rectified. Moving on, we've got this message in from Bengus, who says the claim that Nigeria lost 2.4 billion daily and about 550 billion as a result of the Twitter ban really intrigued me, and I decided and I wanted to know more, but unfortunately, I couldn't find any sensible analysis to back up this claim. All right, let's go. That's quite a,
Well,
a
can I
long
can I
message.
respond to that?
Mhm.
It's based on the daily revenue attributed to Nigeria from Twitter. So prior to the ban, those figures did exist with regards to what Nigeria was generating from content and ads and things like that, specifically from Twitter. That information is in the public domain.
It was coming from NetBlocks at the same time.
Yeah, no, it's not just NetBlocks. There's a whole bunch of it's very open information. So this calculation that you're seeking to clarify is just using that as a benchmark to say that if you now take the daily aggregate from that particular revenue number and then you now multiply it by the 222 days, it now comes to this particular figure. So that's pretty much the calculation around that.
Alrighty. Next story. Okay, so let's move on to the next story, and this one still comes to you. It's from the Punch newspaper. We talked about this yesterday. So why Southerners are not keen on police recruitment, and we talked about this yesterday. Like I mentioned, we said a lot of people they've opened the portals for the registration, but it feels as though people from Lagos and the South are not registering. So the Civil Rights Advocacy Human Rights Writers Association of Nigeria has said youths from the South would not want to be enlisted into the Nigeria Police Force unless it is unbundled from its current constituted states and professionalized to legally enforce federal character principles in its hierarchy. I mean, what do you make of this?
No, but how do you blame any individual for that kind of statement? What makes recruitment of any entity attractive is the entity itself.
Okay.
The entity and the individuals that work in that entity have to look good. I can give you several examples of just several things that make people want to say, I want to be like that. I know when I was very young, I used to look at business executives in their sharp suits and coming out carrying their briefcases and things like that. And even if I didn't understand quite exactly what they did, but just the appearance of how they looked formed an impression upon me when I was very young about the kind of career I wanted. Let me now go to security. Kayode, Shokbe, Justin. At a certain time in this country, even till now, when you see a military officer dressed in their camouflage or their particular dress uniform, and you look at the sharpness of it, you say to yourself, man, that guy looks good.
Yeah.
I love the
Sometimes
official
it's right
way
there.
that they come off, the way their shoes are shining and everything else. Now, not to begrudge the police, but when you look at them as a young individual, what is the aspirational context that you're aspiring towards when they look the way that they look? And more importantly, not even the way that they look, their behavior.
Are you saying that the
No,
government
hold on.
should make it a little more lucrative?
I'm going somewhere. This is where I'm going. It's not about lucrative. It's about appearance, and it's about narrative, and it's about context. You're trying to attract people to join your force. That's just one level. The next layer is to the second point, which is more critical, about state police. We have been having this conversation for God knows how long. We are still operating on the remnants of the colonial government, where we have a national police force in a federation. It doesn't make any sense. And I have never understood that. How can you have a federation of 36 states and you have a national police? It doesn't add up. So these are part of the issues that you have to unbundle the current structure of the Nigerian police force, make it states. So that way your Nigerian police force comes the equivalent of the FBI, where it now operates on a federal context and it now begins to look at federal crimes and everything else. Then the states in itself now run their state police force, even down to specific local government areas have their own police force, if you want this thing to work in its true nature of modern policing.
And now, part of the issue that comes up as well is police welfare. Have we spoken about police
You
welfare?
see that
Because remember, the issue of police barracks used to come up, and let's not even talk about what happens when they die in the line of duty
Right,
and what
right.
happens to their families, or even just something as basic as living police barracks, where we've had police officers coming to say that, oh, we don't even have toilets in the barracks. We have to
Exactly.
go across the road to whatever restaurant is there. And we even have news coming out of Rivers State Police being kicked out of their structures in their barracks.
Exactly. So these are all part of the connected issue, Shopper. So the point being is that if each state now runs its own state police, then you can now begin to have a different conversation.
But in the moment, in
Wait,
the
hold on,
situation
Karen,
where it's not
hold
a
on.
state police, right?
What do you
Do
mean?
you think in a situation where we're still not running the state police right now? I mean, it's a federal level. So do you think that it should be made more lucrative? And also, the people in the south are saying, hey, it's a security situation for us. I mean, we've seen what's happened with the police stations. We've seen how police people have been killed, and so then it begs the question: do you make it a little more lucrative? Do you give them more weapons? I mean, what do you do to
Yeah,
make
Wait,
it?
wait,
that's
wait, wait,
no,
wait,
no.
wait.
That's
So,
a short-term. That's a short-term solution, Kaidi. It still doesn't address the actual issue. Going back to Shopper's point.
wait, Waju, sorry
No,
to
no, go on,
interrupt
go on,
you.
go on.
I just want to put out that they have actually been recently given weapons and new weapons and told to manage them better because they kept disappearing. But Waju, back
Yeah,
to
but
you.
you see, these are all part of the issues. Giving you weapons, but they have to manage it. They have to buy the bullets or account for the bullets, even down to their shoes. They have to buy their boots. They have to buy their belts. Let's not even go into police stories. The main issue is this. Everything that is prescribed, I'm not saying there's a
Mm-hmm.
problem with it from the welfare to anything else, but these are just short-term solutions. You're putting plaster band-aid over gunshot wounds. The actual issue is the root itself. We have no business having a federal police having a federally run police force in a federation. You have to decentralize it to get the maximum efficacy. So the states now become responsible from their own state budgets and their own state legislatures with regards to how best they now run security. Without
can I
which, we're
come
just
in
going to
for it?
continue having this conversation. Yeah, please.
This story is really about the attitudes of different sections of the country to the police, right?
Right.
All these things are wrong with the police, but you have 81,000 applications.
Of course.
Out of which, only 1.7% is from the
Or
southern
2%,
states,
yeah.
right? So my question, or what I'm wondering is, do they have a different police force in those other parts of the country? Because what is accounting for this difference in responses? And it's the relationship that the people have with this entity called the police force. Yes, all these things are wrong with the police. The structural issues are there. Why do we have a centralized police force and all of that? But there's a very different experience. If you drive from Lagos through or Shagamu, Benin, all the way to the east, you realize that you would think you were in a war zone. You would see checkpoints from one checkpoint. In other words, you're at a checkpoint and you can see the next
Oh,
one
yeah,
down the
somebody
road.
talked
Yeah.
about
Right.
just driving down one stretch. and how
have
many
been on that
checkpoints?
10
drive. I
minutes,
did that
it's-
drive like twice last year. Personally, I did a count. It's unbelievable. So these people have a very negative experience with the uniformed force. It doesn't end with the police. And then you want to do recruitment from this. Look,
Thank you.
somehow it's also shooting themselves in the foot because if you're not part of that system, right? If you do not get your young people involved,
And it
then
creates further problems.
it creates it's just a
So
self-fulfilling
what,
problem.
in the long term or in the short term now, what can the government do and what can be done to reverse
No,
the situation?
I don't believe in short terms. The best time to plant a tree is today. You can't focus on short terms because those are squirrels when it comes to the theory of knowledge management. You have to focus on your bull strategy, and your bull strategy needs investment. And if you don't start today, you're going to continue having this conversation. You can continue to focus on short term things, but the problem is unless you put the institution in place for your long term solution, you're going to continue to have this problem. So take the risk now. I mean, things are already what they are, so just deal with it in the interim as they are, but focus on your long-term solution. Decentralize the police, invest in state-run police, and then we can move on from there.
All right. And we've got the story from the police and their conditions to the conditions of their suspects. From the Premium Times, detained suspects shouldn't be sleeping on bare floors, says Monitoring Committee. That's the Administration of Criminal Justice Monitoring Committee, which has bemoaned the living conditions of detained suspects sleeping on the bare floor at various police detention facilities. Now, we've got a quote in from the Executive Secretary of the committee, Sulaiman Dawodu, who says the basic minimal standard is that no no detainee should have to sleep on the floor. The ACJMC, that's the, well, I can say it again, Administration of Criminal Justice Monitoring Committee, has highlighted 25 divisions in the Federal Capital Territory to pilot the scheme. Justin, we've already talked about how the police are faring.
We just,
How do we?
we love photos. We love the theatrics in this country. We love committees. We love meetings. So the Administration of Criminal Justice Act basically talks about how policing should be done, the criminal administration process. And then there's this committee who is traveling around, or which is traveling around 17 police divisions out of 25 in the FCT, distributing here this 25. So they're talking about the welfare of detainees, right? People who are being processed through the criminal justice system. And I said, why are people sleeping on the floor in police stations? So guess what? You know what, committee guys? Let's go around and let's distribute mats to these people. So they're giving out 25 mats to each police division. 25 mats.
25.
Yes, and 25 copies each of the Criminal Justice Act so that the policemen will know and learn how to process people through the system. What do they do in police colleges, number one? Number two, what exactly is the mat supposed to do? So don't sleep on the floor, but sleep on the mat, right? The way that and then there's a whole committee of people's fathers and probably mothers traveling around doing this. That's what the story is telling us, right? It's crazy how we celebrate the mundane.
But despite the acts and despite the traveling, the issue still remains.
They have
that
distributed
we have,
mats.
and despite the mats, the issue still remains that we have detainees and we have prisoners who are living in subpar conditions.
If the people running the system, this committee that has oversight, if the best they could come up with is let's go and give them mats, it tells you that we're nowhere near solving.
So what would you want to see?
But hold on, I don't want Justin's point to be lost, and it's a very powerful point. Broken people cannot fix broken systems, and that's pretty much what the essence of what he's saying. But think about it. If the best they could come up with was sleeping mats,
Let's give them mats.
just think. That's why I don't want his
So
point.
let's look
I
at
don't
I know.
want his
Take
point to be lost.
Take a moment. Yes.
Yeah.
Don't let that point be lost.
Yeah.
However, let's focus on solutions. What would you want to see? If this is not to your liking, what do you want to see?
Can we buy some beds?
Apart from beds.
Yeah. Can we?
Well,
You just said
Can we create some minimum standards for what a prison cell should look like, and agree, and then allocate
Okay.
some money to it, and then build it?
I actually think we should privatize the prison
Well,
system.
Oh, there are also
Okay, so
issues
that's
with the
another conversation.
privatized prison system.
I agree in principle, but I think I'm just triggered when I hear privatization of
This is
prison
not the US,
systems.
don't
I know. That's why I agree in principle, but I think because of what I've seen with the privatization, so I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm just triggered. So
Especially where there are
Conversations can be had
large
about it. Don't rule it
chasms.
out.
Well, okay.
Also, one more thing. Do you think that there's funding for I mean, because you're talking about beds now, and we've seen how much the police has allocated in the budget amongst other
they can raise the money.
That committee
Kyrie.
probably spent more
Thank
money
you.
on paying themselves. for doing
I'm
this
traveling
tours
around. Are you kidding
than
me?
they spent on actually solving the problem.
Mats.
Mats.
Hashtag mats.
All right.
All right. And hashtag freshly pressed 981, which we are up on Twitter. So you can join the conversation using that hashtag. It's been a few months, so it's taking me a little while to remember freshly pressed 981 on Twitter. But there, I remembered it. Send your messages in on that platform too. Going over to WhatsApp, Nick from Apapa says, you guys left out another, regarding the police recruitment story, you guys left out another issue. Southerners have been discouraged over the years from joining the military and paramilitary. Remember what happened with the Navy last year until a House of Reps member brought it up and they suspended the recruitment process. Okay, Nick from Apapa, thank you for your message. And Ken from Surulere says, this federal government will never support state police because the present police structure favors the North, says Ken.
I didn't want to say that.
And Austin from Satellite says the reason why the Southern youths were not registering into the Nigerian police is because when the time for promotion comes, they will not be promoted. Instead, their counterparts from other regions will be promoted, especially from the north, says Austin, while those from the southeast are more educated than those that were promoted, says Austin. We've got more messages, but we also have more stories.
Yes.
Should we take another one? I'm going to go over to Twitter now. Don't you worry, people. I'm on it.
Okay.
The
So,
Twitter, the Twitter.
let's talk about the. Let's see now. Let's take the last story. Let's talk about the NLNG story. Yes.
Okay, so NLNG suspends cooking gas export channels 100% to domestic market. This coming in from the Punch newspaper.
I think this is very important, and I'm very happy that our primary liquefied natural gas producer is now focusing on internal, needs, which is very critical because I know last year we saw something like 150% increase in the price of cooking gas for the average citizen, which was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, within the space of 1 year, cooking gas went from about 3,500 naira to 9,500 naira. So part of these interventions that you're now seeing from NLNG, where they can produce it locally and distribute it locally, is now reducing the cost. So you're now seeing a steady decrease in cooking gas, as I'm sure most people attest to. So it's very, very important because I think this speaks back to the larger issues that we have, which is around, being import dependent and, heavy on everything that we do, which is why you saw a skyrocketing price, because any disruption within any international supply chain is going to have a negative adverse effect on, the last price in this country. So, yeah, this is fine. If I just hope it's something that MLNG can sustain. I also hope it's something that they have the capacity to meet the needs of the entire generation, and entire populace. So that way we can see a reduction in the cost. So yeah, it's a welcome initiative, and let's see how it goes.
Okay, something that's happening is from the Vanguard newspaper. Stopping Rivers artisanal refinery suit has turned war, says the governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, who yesterday declared war on artisanal refinery operatives in the state, saying that no reasonable government would allow their activities, better known as fire, there we go, which induces hazardous soot across the state. Justin, I'm leaving this one to you.
Rightly so. I was born and raised in Port Harcourt, and it's a tragedy what's happening down there. I was in Port Harcourt in November. You literally walk into a room, swipe your finger across any surface. Doesn't matter if that room has been locked up for a year. Swipe your finger across any surface and it comes out black. If you put a cotton bud in your nose and swipe, it comes out black.
Wow,
People are going to we're going to see an avalanche. Already the horse has bolted, right? Because a few years down the line, we are going to see an avalanche of respiratory diseases breaking out in that area.
Now, Justin, I remember this, and this also goes back to why Twitter is, great to have for opening up conversations.
Yeah.
For a long time, there was a hashtag trending about Port Harcourt and about the suit.
Yeah.
People sharing their stories, talking about how it was just really
It's terrible.
ruining their quality of life
It's
over
terrible.
there, and that was how it kind of went into the national consciousness and conversation. And yet, we're still here. How many years later? Still discussing this.
It's just like bunkering. So what is GoFire? So artisanal refinery. So there are people who are in the creeks breaking pipes, crude pipes, and refining. Basically, they are putting crude oil in pots and drums and boiling it and releasing carbon soot into the atmosphere. And it's become endemic. You literally will not be able to see the sun in Port Harcourt on any given day because the entire place is blanketed in this carbon particles in the air. Now, these things cannot happen without an active. Let me take a deep breath. There's a heavy military presence in the area. It's a miracle that things like this go on a day-to-day without any intervention. Let me put it that way. Now, the governor has cried out because, as we all know and as we've all seen, when we say that governors are the chief security officers of their states, it's on paper. When the chips are down, you're reminded that the security forces are centralized in this country, right? So the governor has been fighting an uphill battle. Kudos to him, kudos to Mr. Wike on this one. And I'm glad that he's about to step up the tempo because people are literally dying. And listen, you can't do those things in an area that is filled with military and police presence and there's no connivance.
Okay, so let's break it down in layman's terms.
It's not the poor people doing this.
We're totally out of time.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh, wow.
but we've got some messages that we can read up on Twitter, up on YouTube, and up on WhatsApp. Going over to YouTube first, where Joy says the biggest case against state police is fear. The northern leaders see it as the beginning of the end of control in the east and south. While she goes on to say, Eastern Police will now have arms to defend its territories away from central control. Jide up on Twitter, hashtag Freshly Press 981, says NSARS was to help address police welfare, but it was never allowed, so let's continue to live the dream. And WhatsApp.
Yes,
We've got
Tokoni
messages.
Douglas says on the police recruitment, Southern youths largely don't want to become what they detest. These days, it is almost shameful to be a police officer. And Sela comes finally to say, what I don't get is why Wike is the final, why
Is
Wike
in-
is in his final months of his 8-year tenure, and he now decides to wake up to the elephant in the room. Environmentalists and pretty much everyone affected by the effects of the pollution and the suits all over town have been screaming about this since 2014. Okay.
And that is that. It's over so quickly.
But you can join the conversation after this show on our YouTube platform. Okay, sometimes we have conversations, extended conversations,
Actually, you can join the conversation on Twitter.
and also on Twitter as well. So across all platforms, we're at Smooth 91 FM, and of course on YouTube, it's Smooth 91 FM Lagos.
We can say Twitter again in public.
Yes, we can.
And you can find our analysts online as well.
Yes, please, at the Corporate MC across all social media platforms, which include Twitter and Instagram. Please go there. I've got some wonderful content to share with you all.
And he just showed us a
Corporate MC with
picture.
a K,
If it's
by the
not up on Instagram, I don't know what he's doing. Justin?
EJ everywhere.
At Justin EJ everywhere.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, and that is that coming up. We've got a Feel Good Friday Lagos Talks. And yes, from last week, we did promise you we'd be sharing car stories. So as you're in your car, think of your funnest story and call us up. We'll be right back.
We're going to ask a layman's question. So you said that the people are literally boiling.
Okay. The Navy boys, the Army boys,
Yes, they're the
are
ones.
just there making money. Listen, in the military eh, ecosystem or whatever they do, in the military circles, right?
Yes.
If you get a posting to the Niger Delta, you have it.
You're
So it's available to the highest. They escort the vessels that come to buy this.
so this is why
in and
Wiki
out of
hasn't
the
been
ports.
able to do
He
anything.
can't do anything about it. He's shouting now because what are people going to do? I'm like telling us everybody's going into campaign, so we'll throw mud at each other. That's the only thing he can do. He can't do anything about it. Really. Because when you go and who are the people?
So how about the regular people? Can't the people get up and
And do what?
It's a
protest
business.
and-
Who are you
No, I'm
protesting
talking
against?
about-
You die, you just they'll kill you. Simple. It's the same way the whole Zamfara thing started, and we thought it was headsman class. We knew it was about gold.
That's another way to look at it. Yeah,
It's a
because nobody's
business.
talking about the gold
It's an
situation there.
organized business. Ships coming from outside the country to come and buy illegally refined crude.
Wow.
It's an international racket.
We need
So
to do
don't-
a
it's not
We need to
Lagos
do a
Talk
Lagos Talks
special,
on
and
it.
it's
yeah, really.
okay. So
Would you be available to join that Lagos Talks?
Lagos Talk special.
I've been begging my mom
Take
to
a
leave
call.
town. If you don't want to come to Lagos, okay, go to Asaba. Go. From the say go home. Well, no, it's mad.
Every
People
always
are going
have
to
to
be
leave where you're
dropping
coming.
like flies in a couple of years.
Hey, okay, no, we don't need-
It's bad.
I know a friend of mine traveled recently.
You
and
clean-
he said the
if
same
you-
thing. He said if
if
he does
you-
his nose like this, you find
If
like,
you
can it be that
clean,
bad?
if you clean your ACs. So when I went home in November, I got someone to come and just touch up, clean my mom's house, service the ACs. Oh no! So I had to
It's
tell her
just
we'll be
suits.
doing this thing every month. You can't be waiting for months. They have to do this thing every month.
Every month, yeah, because the air is so bad.
If you go out in the morning and come back and do like this, black, you dare not walk around barefoot.
No, but listen, I remember when I first
It's-
started going to Port Harcourt around 06, 07. I was doing a lot of work with MMG. And my colleague who used to go told me that before we land, look at the horizon
It's all bad.
as you're descending Port Harcourt. And it's a flare. It's like this, like, Justin, how do you
Flare,
describe
flare.
it? It's like when you see it's like burning. It's like the air is burning. That's the best way.
Gas flaring.
It's not just gas flaring, but it's the entire
I mean, the ozone has been suffering that, but this suit thing is a totally different
different
ballgame.
game.
Yes, because this you can touch, you can feel
can
it,
see.
you can see it, and it's sticky.
Oh wow.
There's no people are in
People will never understand this because yeah, we're not experiencing it there here.
No, you have to see it to understand what it is. You have to see it. All right, guys.
All right, thank you so
Sorry
much. Justin.
about that. Oh, Justin, we would love someone who's actually on ground, that we can get for Lagos Talks as well.
On this soup thing.
Yeah. So if you know anyone,